Hello and welcome back to The Better It Gets. Today I have shadow integration specialist and dear brother Chris Orozco on. He specializes in purpose and men's work. And, I've known Chris for several years now, and he's someone who, if you don't follow him on Instagram, the truth, the sword of his truth pierces so deep. Sometimes it makes you squirm, but in the best way, because it's revealing so much that gets brushed under the rug, right? I would say Chris's specialty is being able to really pierce into truth and to produce results. Something that I find really powerful about the way he facilitates work as well is he doesn't charge based on the session. He charges based on the breakthrough. So this man's the real deal. He's all about the breakthrough. He's about getting to the core, getting to the depth. And I'm so excited to have him on the podcast today. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be here. And just hearing that, I love being seen that way. It feels really good. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited to have you on here to share the gems, share the codes, share the truth. And that's a masculine superpower, is to be able to wield the sword of truth, but in a way that really is rooted in love. And that's another thing I find so powerful about your work is the love and truth that you hold simultaneously.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just dive right in. I would love to go into how did you get started on this path with this work? I know that you've had deep experiential embodied, processes with this work. So I would love to just start there.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'll tell the long parts of the story as short as I can. Because literally it started when I was a kid. I was raised into a family of Jehovah's Witnesses, and my dad died when I was a little kid. And so that's kind of where this version of me came from, was my dad dying when I was a little kid and all of my illusions being broken in that one moment. And the only people I could turn to were the adults in the Jehovah's Witness church, and none of them, it's kind of cool that I knew this at the time, but none of them were able to speak from the heart to me. I could feel there was no connection and there was nothing real there. They were just reciting scripture. And so I was like, this is lacking a real human soul element. There's something wrong here. And all of the answers were unsatisfying and dogmatic. And it's just this, I just knew this wasn't it. So I ended up leaving my family's religion at 12 to go find my own way of living, which didn't work so well with my family. I got kicked out of the house at 16 and had to just kind of stay gone, figuring out my own way of life. But I made a lot of mistakes. I got really into drugs and I was traumatized, and psychedelics and trauma don't work very well together, especially because I have a history of mental illness. So I had, psychotic break after psychotic break, and everything just went fucking downhill. However, when I was 26, I was living in San Francisco with 3 witches. And one of them was familiar with shadow integration, which is a crazy thing because this was maybe 14, 15 years ago, before anybody knew what shadow integration was. But somehow I lived with one woman who knew what it was. And she doesn't even practice it anymore. She went in a completely different path, but in this moment, she was right where she needed to be. And she shared 3 distinct insights with me. The first one that really helped me was like, Chris, you're not broken. You're just taking really poor care of yourself. And I don't know why I believed that, but I did. And I was like, oh shit, tell me more. And then she was like, you're not one thing. You're a collection of all these different selves. And they vary in degree of health depending on how well you take care of them. And I was like, okay, that makes fucking sense. I have been really hard on myself. I've been really mean to myself. This checks out. And then she says, and then no matter how dysfunctional or unhealthy a part is, if you take care of it and love it the proper way, it will become healthy again. And for whatever reason, I was just like, you're right, that makes fucking sense. Because I'd seen all those videos of neglected and abused dogs where someone just gives them a little space and a little love and some food. And a few months later, they're loving and personable and unrecognizable. Instinctually, I was just like, yeah, you're right. And she had a book on it that was called Embracing Ourselves by a couple named Hal and Sidra Stone. And I only read half the book. I only read enough to understand that like why parts get fractured, that they have needs, and that if you meet those needs in a healthier way, then they will become healthier. And it's like, okay, that's all I needed to know. So I kind of put the book away and just started playing with these concepts. And over a few months, I was starting to notice, like, holy shit, I can do this. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel for me. And then about 2 years after discovering that, I had been in a men's group in San Francisco. And then all these older men that I had looked up to and I was looking for advice from, suddenly they started looking to me. And I was like, what the fuck happened? How's that possible? I was the broken kid. I was the youngest guy to ever join the men's group, and I was completely broken. And now all these guys are looking to me for help. I should probably tell people what I did to get here in such a short amount of time. And so that's what I started doing. And so that's my business. That's basically what I do, is explain to people how I did all that.
Wow. Wow. I have so many chills because you and I have done a lot of, collaborative things. And I don't think I've ever heard this part of your story.
Oh wow, yeah, it was really cool because there was a lot of these really impressive guys, like even like world famous coaches that like you might even be able to recognize if I told you some of their names. And then they were coming to me for help, and I was just like, how did this happen? You guys are like older than me. You're way more successful than me. What do I have to offer? And then I remembered what my life was like 2 years prior, and I was like, oh, that's what I have to offer. I actually have a lot. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing from that too is that you like I feel like every soul has a curriculum, and some people like they're here to forge a certain path, and it's almost like that trauma, that dysfunction, that desperation creates the pocket for that particular light to enter, and then
Huh?
because you knew it was lacking, right? You knew that there was this connection with people that was devoid of heart, right? Devoid of like this peace that maybe you couldn't articulate yet. But when that light shone through, you immediately recognized it. And then
Yeah.
you ran with it because your recognition of it allowed you to integrate it.
Yeah.
And then, that became the thing that you like honed in on.
Yeah. And I'd been chasing it my whole life. I started chasing it when I was really young in punk rock because some of the punk rock mentalities have an element of that thing that I was looking for, but it wasn't complete. And then I started going to raves and I became a raver and I thought Plur was it, and it was like, okay, that's some of it, but not really. And then I got into Burning Man and I was like, okay, this is much, much closer. And then eventually I found shadow integration. I was like, no, this is the thing I've been looking for. In all those subcultures, like this is the thing internally I've been looking for my whole life.
Mm. I mean, I love it because even your shirt, it's got the punk rock, but it's got
Yeah.
like,
Dharma punks.
yeah, Dharma punks, and it's kindness, compassion. It's like you get to like rock both. And I think that that's such a big piece that you touched on is you were getting closer to it. However, in a lot of the spiritual and quote unquote conscious community, the thing that's missing the most is the shadow integration and the ability to actually go into those depths and
Yes.
integrate those fragmented pieces.
Yes.
So I would love to talk to you about like what that process looks like and some of the results that you and your clients have had from doing this work.
Yeah, I mean the very first result I can talk about is just that 2 year period that I'm talking about, like when I really turned my life around. It is so hard to even fully really get myself back into how difficult my life really was back then. And considering how healthy I am now, it's very hard for a lot of people to imagine just how bad it was. Um, but like I've had multiple psychotic breaks in my life to the point where like I didn't even feel human anymore for a long period of time. Where if I spoke to one person, it was like, hell yeah, I did good today. If I had one little conversation, no matter how bad it went, I opened up to somebody. Like I would go through years where I could, or not necessarily years where I couldn't speak, but I would go through weeks where I couldn't speak. And like my girlfriend or whatever would have friends come over and I would go hide in the bathroom because I just couldn't stand to have anyone see me. And they knew I was there. They'd be knocking on the door and I just wouldn't answer. I would stay quiet till everyone would leave. And like every day I was just constantly I was so depressed I could barely get out of bed. I was so anxious I could barely think. I just wanted to die all the time to get the like anxiety and paranoia and like the psychedelic psychedelically induced psychosis to just fucking stop. And literally when I was 26, when I found this work, it was like either I'm going to end my life or I'm gonna find a way out. I was like, I was there. I was like, this has to stop one way or another. And I'm so glad I found what I found. But the biggest thing I can possibly say is that within 2 years, the tremendous amount of pain I was in had become a memory. It had become like a life that I didn't really remember anymore. I know that it happened. I knew it was me, but I didn't relate to that person anymore. I experienced, because the thing you have to understand is I blamed myself for my dad's death. I was there when it happened. I was 6 years old, and I told myself that he died because I didn't save him. And I genuinely carried the guilt and the shame of being responsible for my father's death for my entire life. I literally just grieved it maybe 2 months ago. I've carried it my entire life. And it's so hard to explain what it feels like, because I would be like afraid to look my family in the eye, because genuinely thought I was responsible. And so the amount of self-hatred that you bring into your life when you think something, because I loved my dad. He wasn't a bad guy. I loved him. And so I thought I'd done the worst thing I could possibly do. And so the amount of self-hatred that comes from an experience like that is indescribable, and I don't know that I'd even want to be able to describe it. But it's not a part of me anymore. I have the most loving internal world that anybody could really ever want. Like I have a whole bunch of friends in here that help me and give me insight and encourage me and lift me up when I need it. Whereas for most of my life, until I was 26, my entire inner world was genuinely dedicated to destroying me. It thought I was a bad thing that needed to be destroyed. And now my internal world is a genuine source of love and support and encouragement and like kindness. Like my inner world is nice to me now and encourages me. And to think that that's even fucking possible at all, let alone possible from where I came from, like that's crazy that that's even possible. Like that still blows me away that we as human beings are even capable of that.
Wow, I have full body chills. I mean, what a testament to the fact that no matter what state your parts are in, you can get them all into a harmonious, synergy with each other. You can work, like you said in the beginning, with any of these parts, just like a mutilated dog, right? And you can rehabilitate that dog through love and nurturance and tending. And so it sounds like that's what you've been doing, like even with the most wounded part, right? And the fact that you saw that with your father, I mean, that's a blueprint not many people experience, but the fact that you could turn that lead into gold and you're now embodying it and you can now speak on it and you're now teaching on it, right? That's huge. And I feel like that's like one of the key pieces of shadow integration. However, most people are terrified to even look at those parts and pieces because they overly identify with them instead of recognizing that they're actually a multiplicity of parts.
Yes.
So, what is the difference between shadow integration and shadow work? And I mean, these are two different questions, but we'll go to this one first. How has your reality, your external reality, shifted since your inner landscape's become that much nicer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, first of all, my whole world now is basically an expression of who I actually am, and I've always been a pretty authentic guy because I found punk rock when I was in sixth grade, and so that kind of gave me the morals and ethics of authenticity at all costs. And like the reason I design my own clothes and stuff is because of like DIY punk that I grew up in. It's just like you do shit your way or you don't do it at all. And so that's like the ethic that I grew up in. And so I've always been authentic, but not on a soul level in the way I am now. I used to be like I was an angry, rebellious kind of authentic. And now I'm the kind of like peaceful, allowing kind of authentic. And it allows me to, first of all, I kept myself as broke for a really long time. Like really, really, really broke, like barely able to afford my rent, have to have $10 last me for an entire week to get my food. And I haven't had to live like that in God knows how long. And that's literally a direct result of integrating the parts of me that relate to money. And so it's really cool because there's a part of you that relates to every different element of your reality. And if any element of your reality is unhealthy, all you have to do is integrate the part of you that connects to that part of your reality, and then that part of your reality gets cleaned up. And
That's the
so,
next part I wanted to go into.
okay, good. Yeah.
I actually wrote down one of the quotes you shared, I think yesterday.
Mhm.
Um, if you want to know which belief creates the pattern, look for which beliefs the pattern validates.
Yes.
Can we
So,
extrapolate on that?
yeah. So, first of all, I'm just going to acknowledge that I created my own framework for doing this because that book that I read half of, it was a book that was entirely facilitator dependent. The only kind of people doing shadow work were doing specifically facilitated shadow work where you had to sit in multiple chairs and have the facilitator tell you to move and blah, 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 blah. So the reason I only read half the book was because I wanted to be able to do this without a facilitator. So that's the purpose of my framework, was to take a completely facilitator dependent framework and make it something you could do on your own. And with that, I learned all kinds of really cool things about the internal world that I would have never learned if I just read the book. That being that beliefs are cyclical. And like maybe we've heard of self-fulfilling prophecies before, but I use self-fulfilling prophecies to reverse engineer my patterns. Where what that means is if like for the longest time, because I thought I killed my dad, I wanted I wanted to tell myself that I was a bad person and that if I did anything, it would mean that that thing was bad because it was me that was doing it. So inherently, whatever I did was bad. And so it made me never want to do anything. It took me a really long time to gain any success in my business. It took me a really long time to really be able to engage in anything. I went from being in gifted classes in school to failing every grade from 4th to 11th after my dad died. I just couldn't pay attention to anything. And so this was a long-winded way to get to your point.
No, it's beautiful.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so the cyclical. So self-fulfilling prophecies function in that what you believe causes you to act in a way that enforces that belief, and then it validates the belief. So I needed to believe that I was bad. And so what I would do is I would behave in ways that I could view as bad in order to validate that belief, reinforce it, and also reinforce my comfort zone.
Right, because it's familiar.
Exactly. Yeah, because the mind doesn't give a shit about what makes you happy. It cares about what's familiar. So it wanted me to keep thinking I was bad so that I would stay in a little pen for myself where I could never cause any more harm and not hurt anybody. And so every little thing that I did that made me feel bad, I started to notice, I was like, oh, this is just validating that same story. It's just a cycle. So I do things because of the stories I already have. And I was like, okay, so if I know that, then all I ever have to do is look at the way a pattern makes me feel after I've done it, and that will tell me everything about why I did it in the first place. It's because it needs to stay cyclical. If I'm already I'm a bad person, I need to do things to reinforce that. But if I don't know that that's what I'm reinforcing, I can find out by looking at the pattern itself. Is that clear?
Totally. I mean, it
Okay.
reminds me of in hypnotherapy college, one way that we would like create a diagram for clients to understand how the subconscious mind works is like
Mm.
from 0 to 7, let's say when your formative years, right? When you're like a sponge, you draw
Mhm.
like a circle and at the bottom, there's all these like positives and negatives, and those represent your belief systems
Mhm.
that are already there. They're like foundational, but the negatives, like your mind and your body don't understand the difference between the quote unquote negatives and positives. All it knows is that it's familiar and it
Mhm.
wants to stay in homeostasis at all costs because, let's say your mind is so used to feeling like you are a bad person or like thinking this is like so rooted in your soma in your body,
Mhm.
then it's going to feel so foreign to do something that's against that belief.
Mhm.
It's almost like it just doesn't compute. And so then you go back to doing the thing that reinforces, yeah, that you're not a good person. And I'm curious like how that also relates to money. Like is
Mhm.
it like, oh, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of holding this money.
Yeah, so it's interesting. With money, it made me realize how personalized the beliefs can be. Because for me, it's like, obviously we have all these ideas about limiting beliefs about money or whatever, whatever. But mine, when I found out what mine really were, it surprised the shit out of me. Because it's not one you read about in blogs or whatever. It was like, I thought if I had a lot of money, I was going to lose it all, just like I lost my dad. And so for me, it was like, never let yourself have anything that would hurt to lose. That's what it was for me. And so once I understood that, I was like, okay, well, we're going to lose shit no matter what, bro. Like, and we're all going to die. Everyone I know is going to die. Everything is impermanent. That's like the whole point of Buddhism. So we're not going to get away from loss. But what we can do is protect from loss. Is we can make so much money that if we lose some, it's fine. Or you, guy who's afraid of me losing all this money, you can tell me all the dumb ways in which I might lose my money, and then I'll make sure I don't do those. I'll make sure I'm protected against those. And that's how they become allies. Because the parts that say, hey, don't do that because we might have stuff to lose, it's like, okay, well, help me figure out how to not lose it then. That's when they become friends.
Yeah, that's what creates the internal allyship.
Yes.
Right. And then also when you have that internal allyship and you work with those parts, it's like other people don't seem like as big of a threat.
Yeah, because they're not. Yeah. They're all just you.
Exactly. They're all mirrors. And that's another piece that we can dive into. It's like there's so much of the time we externalize our own parts. And so we see somebody that's embodying something that really activates something in us, and we want to like create separation or a barrier versus, oh, this is data for me to now look at my internal constitution, see where parts are maybe in dissonance and where maybe I'm carrying that code, or there's a part of me that wants to embody that thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which even comes back to money. Because for me, I was like your fucking, hardcore, revolutionary, anti-capitalist punk rocker my entire life. And then I discovered shadow work, and then I realized that I didn't want to be homeless anymore. And so I thought about that for a little bit, and I started to notice, and I was like, oh my God, I have hated rich people all my life. But it was because I had the belief that I was bad, and if I did anything selfish, that bad things would come of it. Therefore, any selfish act is inherently evil. And so I was looking at anybody who ever did anything good for themselves as inherently evil, because that was just a projection of my frame. I thought I was bad because I'd done something horrible, and so anybody who ever acted selfishly must also be doing something horrible. And then once I realized that, I was like, holy shit, that is so wrong. There are so many people doing so many good things with money. Oh my God. And that was that. And then I became like, oh shit, I could be one of the good people that does good things with money. And so it's every little thing, like you said, is an opportunity and an invitation to see, like, is that thing that I think is bad even bad? Or is it just my morality? Because to a large degree, our morality is just a defense mechanism to keep a kid safe. It has very little to do with actual morality. My morality was all about what I thought would keep me safe, not what was actually good or bad. And right. Until you learn to question, actually, you don't know anything.
Right. I mean, it all comes back to the homeostasis thing, right? Even the subconscious mind and the ego is trying to keep us safe by running these beliefs and these patterns, which is why it takes a lot of courage to be able to go in there and integrate and sit and look at the parts of yourself that you find absolutely despicable, that like you maybe prior to knowing what this work is, you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, and you want to like keep everybody at arm's length that has anything that represents anything close to it. And something, Teddy actually talks about a lot is like when he was going through his own process of something similar to this, it was like he came to the realization on his own in a really profound way that every single human is just trying to keep themselves safe. So like no matter what the atrocity is, no matter like there's if you like strip it all the way down, it's like, oh, I'm trying to stay safe. And then if you strip that back, right, it's like the fear of annihilation, the fear of death ultimately is underneath. It's kind of driving everything that we do.
And there's some really brutal, like when you get, because I've been practicing shadow integration for like 15 years now. So I feel like I can have compassion for just about anybody. And so like I specifically take time out of my day to look at some of the worst people on the planet and try and figure out what's going on with them. And sure as shit, I get to a point where like, oh my God, I see how I could have been you. I see how born under different circumstances with different genes, I could easily be led down the same path. Because that's the crazy thing, is you start to see, one of the first shockers for me was I used to see like I was politically half-minded like everyone else. And I was like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and that's just all there is to it. And then I started to experience my own shadow, and I started to see good where I used to see only bad. And I started to see bad where I used to see only good. And the whole world got way grayer. And I was like, holy shit, like morality is a lot different than I thought it was. You can't easily draw circles around good and evil. And my God, can you not just stamp out good and evil? Like, horrible things happen when you try to do that. And so it makes the world more gray. It makes the world extremely complex. It makes you hard to understand to other people. But at the same time, it allows that opportunity to bring into wholeness parts of you that the rest of the world would never even want to look at. And that is so worth being misunderstood by however many people you need to be.
Mm, right? Because ultimately it's about becoming whole.
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't like, and that's going to look different to different people, but also that piece around how much is infiltrating us constantly to be divided internally and externally. And we see this massive divide. We see all this separation. But what you just shared is a very Christic way of being embodied of like universal compassion and love, even for the most atrocious atrocities. And also like, the reflection of how when you can really put yourself under the microscope and you can have the courage to really look at all these different parts of yourself, no matter how icky and sticky and undesirable, and like really look at them through the lens of love. And that's what I want to go into next with you too, is the difference between shadow work and shadow integration.
Okay, great. So I love that you always bring this up because this is so fun. Yeah, this is one that I kind of discovered because like 5 years into my work, shadow work started getting really popular. And people started using these words interchangeably. And it was really kind of muddying the water, and I wanted to clear things up. And so this is kind of the distinction that I came up with, in that shadow work is things that allow you to become aware of your subconscious or unconscious material, maybe allow you to cozy up to them. Things like sitting meditation, things like breath work, things that'll allow you to just kind of sit there and become aware of your internal world and, accept it and just kind of be okay with it. That's really good in the sense that it'll bring more peace and tranquility. It'll bring calm. It'll bring connection to yourself. But what it won't do is shift the symptoms on a fundamental level. And it's like shadow work is the ability to blow your nose and get relief, whereas shadow integration is the ability to take medicine and not have to be sick anymore. And so what shadow integration does is it's like, let's say you're in sitting meditation, you're becoming aware of all these different parts. Shadow integration adds an analytical element where you're saying, yeah, I'm not only aware of you and I'm not only accepting of you, but I actually care enough to try and figure out what specifically you're upset about in the first place and what specifically you need from me in order to feel so safely protected from that thing in such a consistently habitual way that you forget that you were ever scared of it, and the new behavior becomes an automatic unconscious process. Oof. That's what integration is, and that's a huge distinction.
That will change the world. I mean, yeah, I have chills. I love the way that you just explained it in the analogy that you gave, because that is it. It's like, you can go and sit in all the ayahuasca ceremonies and you can do all the breathwork sessions, right? And then you're back with your family or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The pattern still comes up. I mean, I'm still toggling with it, Mm-hmm. I've been on the path for quite a bit. There's so many layers to it. And I feel that fierce compassion and the rigorous honesty get to go hand in hand in order to excavate. I personally find that the way that I integrate parts the best is through getting really intimately, I love how you said cozied up, and like sitting with the discomfort of what's coming up. And then the curious compassion piece for me comes through like long form journaling and writing. That's where I really start to dialogue with the parts, and I start to ask questions, and then I'll invite the part up. I'll create a safe container, like even in my room. I'll like set up like the pillows and the cozy, and like I set the container so that there's some element of coziness as I like pierce into like the darkness and the fear and the parts of me that are like recoiled, in like the attic of my psyche. And then I'll start to like slowly go in there, and then I'll start to dialogue, right? And then see like what that part is feeling, what it needs. And I find that there is nothing that comes even close to the level of freedom that you experience when you're in wholeness with your parts, because there's such a deep belonging to self that no matter, like we were saying earlier, no matter who doesn't understand you, like you got you so deeply. And the way that you can navigate in the world and in your interpersonal relationships from that space, like speaking truth in relationships doesn't feel as threatening to your safety because of the safety that you've self-sourced.
Because like, what are you gonna do? Like, bring up emotions I'm already okay with? Like, oh no, oh no.
Right.
Like, who cares? Like, what are you gonna do? Abandon me so that I feel the part of me that like I'll never abandon, and then it just becomes even more valid that I will never abandon myself. Like, oh no.
Right.
Like, what are you gonna do? Reject me so I can find the part of me that's afraid of that and love it so much that it never has to worry about it anymore? Like, who gives a shit? There's nothing anyone can do to you that you can't not only recover from but become stronger from.
Right. Because it all just becomes data and sustenance for your inner constitution and the harmony of your inner ecosystem. Okay. So something I actually want to explore with you a little bit more is the piece on speaking truth, right? Because I feel that that's something that holds a lot of us back is, the people pleaser complex, or the fear, we just touched on it, the fear of abandonment for that fierce belonging to self. And so I would love to hear, how you've navigated this and how you'll take your clients through like really speaking truth and operating from that authentic frame.
Nice. Yeah. So for me, truth is a matter of mental health, in that you just cannot be at your most integrated unless you're telling the truth. Because shadow integration, to a large degree, is a practice of reconnecting your connection to the truth. And that a lot of mental illnesses and dysfunctions come from our disconnection from the truth. There's a saying that says that dysfunction is the mother of all, or no, repression is the mother of all dysfunction. But what happens in the moment before you even repress something is you break from the truth. And that's what really causes the dysfunction. Is there's the truth of your experience, there's the truth of what you think, and the truth of what you feel. And the moment that becomes too much, that you turn away from the truth, that is where all dysfunction comes from. Because that which you've turned away from doesn't go anywhere other than into the shadow, which is actually a place. The shadow is like a trash can. And when you break from the truth and you throw everything into the trash can, it starts to rot and it starts to go bad. And integration is the ability to look at the truth that you've turned away from and look at the truth of how much you don't want to see it, and the truth of how afraid you are to feel it, and the truth of how much you fucking hate it and all the problems that it's caused to you. And then finally, the truth of what it actually is and what it was trying to teach you, and the truth of what you really needed from yourself in that moment, and the truth of what you need from yourself going forward. All of those are different elements of truth. And that if you are not specifically in touch with the truth, like the specific truth of what that part needs and why it needs it and when it needs it and how it needs it, and all of that is different elements of truth. If you are out of alignment with any element of it, the part will simply not integrate, and you will not have access to wholeness. You will not have access to your personal power. You will not have access to the levels of mental clarity and peace that you could possibly have. Your words simply won't carry that much value. Your embodiment is going to be wonky, and there's just so much that comes along with that. And at the same time, the truth is a very destructive force. And it is a very brutal force that doesn't give a shit about anyone. Which is part of why, like, for me, the love and the harshness of the truth come together so well, is because that's how it fucking is. Like, the truth of the matter is, when you really get into it, and like you start doing your shadow work, the truth of the matter is that there's horrible shit inside of you. Like horrible, horrible things that are aiming at horrible things. And the truth of the matter is that they're just misguided. And if you want to help them, you have to be able to be okay with the horrible, terrible, dark sides of life as an element of truth, but also be able to love them as an expression of this beautiful thing that can become healthier. And so, and just like the same thing where no matter how good of a person you are, if you have certain levels of mental dysfunction, you just get a life that is a reflection of those. That is truth also. And it is brutal as fuck. And it is incompassionate and uncaring. It doesn't care how much you deserve. Doesn't care how hard you work. Your either mind is aligned with the thing or it's not. And so truth just is fucking brutal. And that's just kind of all there is to it. It's a neutral force of nature. And like any other force of nature, if you get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, it will destroy you. And so there's a healthy respect and fear you have to have of truth. But at the same time, you have to be more afraid of breaking the truth, breaking from the truth. Because this is going to get a little conceptual, but my understanding of God really is as the conscience. And that if you honor the conscience and tell the truth about who you really are and what you think is right, your life will become a paradise. And if you dishonor your conscience and what it knows to be true, you break your relationship with yourself and your life spirals into hell. And so all of these things, like truth is the thing that gives us integrity, like structural integrity. Like your parts will not fit together properly to the degree that you break from truth. Truth is the glue that holds everything together. And it's very challenging for the people around you. And so you also have to love the parts of you that resonate with everyone else who doesn't like what you have to say, because they're also you. And so it never fucking ends, really. If you want to take it seriously, and if you want to see how far the game goes, you're going to be busy forever because there's just so much to do. But it's a constant search of like, what is true? What do I actually want? What do I actually think? What do I actually feel? And balancing that with the fact that how much do I actually care about keeping you close to me and saying this in a way that matters, because that's all true too. And like communicating in a way that you'll be able to hear, and like that's a version of truth as well. Because what good is the truth if it's said in a way that the other person can't hear? And there's the truth of what they need, that you have to contend with that as well. And there's just, so there's a lot.
That was actually the next piece I wanted to go into. Firstly, I love that you said it's a game. To see it as a game with infinite levels, right? And then to be like, okay, I'm this voyager, and I am the ship, right? And it's like, and my psyche is what's creating my reality, and my reality is a mirror back into my psyche and this inner realm. And the rigorous honesty of truth, if we get a little bit esoteric or energetic, the truth as the masculine, right? That sword of truth. And then love is the feminine, and knowing that we have masculine and feminine energetics within us, and we have these polarities within us at all times, and how can they dance together, right? And then learning how to firstly be rigorously honest with ourselves, like getting down into the nitty gritty, like literally for me, it's writing out what those horrific things are and seeing them and like really dancing with them and getting intimate with them. The more intimate I can get with and rigorous with that truth, the more I can source that sense of like, oh, I know what lives here. So I'm, and there, again, just that freedom of expansion that happens from that space. And then the next piece is like, okay, say we are excavating this truth. We're recognizing all the ways we broke from truth in our life. And now we're in the reparation phase. We're in the repair. Okay. How do we lovingly execute, the conversations that need to be had? I'm actually in this space right now. I've been in so many truth initiations, and I'm in a big wave of it right now, and wanting to tread with love and tact, right? Because like growing up, I didn't know how to speak truth with tact. I have so much Sagittarius in my chart that I could just slice someone with my tongue, and it's taken me. I've done so much work on it that sometimes now my pendulum swings to people pleaser, and that doesn't feel congruent, right? So it's like, it's always coming back to, okay, what is the rigorous honesty here? And then how do I deliver this tactfully and lovingly that contends with their
and for me, that's even more expressions of truth, because it's like, we can't account for how they're going to react. That's not the point. because you could say things in the best way possible and still get a negative reaction. So what we can do is make sure that we're aligned with our truth as best as possible, which also includes the truth of your values, the truth of your standards, and the truth of whether or not what you're saying and how you're saying it hurts the part of you that resonates with the person that you're talking about. Because that's, or talking to, because that's the true measure.
If it hurts the part of you that's connected to them.
Yes. It's like for every person in my life is a part of me that connects and resonates with them. If I am being kind to the part of me that connects and resonates with them, I can trust I'm being as kind to that person as I can manage.
Right.
But if I'm engaging with the person and I start to feel myself getting angry or irritated, pushing something away, starting to say that I'm right or whatever, I can assume I'm pushing down the part of me that resonates with them so I don't have to hear it. And so I can assume that I'm right. And in my world, that's a dick move. So I look at who I'm holding down as look in me who I don't want to hear as a kind of analog for the person that I'm talking to. And then I calm down, I listen, I get myself in alignment with the thing I don't want to listen to. And then once I've gotten into a compassionate frame with that, then I talk to the person again. And I wait until I'm there. I get myself there. Because just like with money, if I want to have a good relationship with money, I have to have a good relationship with the part of me that resonates with money. And if I want to have a good relationship with my mom or my brother or with anybody, and this works because I've hated my mom in my past, I've hated my brother in my past, and my family and I get along so fucking well. It's like we're a sitcom family, and we did not used to be that way. Like, I got kicked out of my house at 16. I used to fist fight my brother on the regular, and we get along so. My brother's like my best friend now. And it was just not that way for a long period of time. And all of this comes as a result of being honest enough to say, I don't even have to worry about tact, really. I just have to worry about how I'm dealing with the part of me that resonates with you.
Right. Which really brings it back to that self-ownership again. It's
Yeah.
like, am I keeping these parts, like, how am I tending to these parts? Because this is going to be a mirror to that inner relationship. Gabor Mate, I love that we're speaking on the relationship piece, because he's like, it's never about, I sat in this retreat that he did, and it was all about parental and child dynamics. And it was fascinating. And he was like, the main message that he was anchoring is, it's not about your relationship to this person. It's about your relationship to the relationship to this person, which all starts with you. The only thing that you have responsibility over.
More specifically, the part of you, this very specific part that resonates and connects to that person. Because it's like, you can do parts work on your relationship to people. It's like, this person pisses me off. Okay, well, which part of me gets pissed? And that says, this person pisses me off. It's like, okay, part that is pissed in presence of this person. What specifically are you pissed about? And then that's when you start to really understand yourself and the other person simultaneously, because all they are is engaging in a pattern that you have a negative relationship with. And so you see the pattern, so you go, boom, that's a bad thing. And you're like, why is that a bad thing? Who said that's a bad thing? I was a child when I said that was a bad thing. Let's actually look at this. And then you gain compassion for the person, and you can decide whether or not you want to be around that person. You don't have to hang out with them, but you also don't have to judge or condemn them, because that's judging and condemning the part of you that's just like them. But you can integrate that part and be like, I still don't want to hang out with you, but I get why you are the way you are. I have compassion for it, and I can help if you ever wanted it. But until then, I'm going to be over here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that goes into the discernment piece, right? It's like, well, when you've done all this work to create this beautiful, harmonious ecosystem within yourself, your reality is reflecting it at this point, right? You're like, it's night and day from where you used to be. It's very similar with my life now. And then from that space, it's like, okay, where does the discernment come in? And I love how you spoke about values. If you know your values, then everything can kind of be measured through that barometer. And it doesn't mean you just, cut things off because they're, but is this congruent? Does this line up with the things that I truly value and that I live by? If not, this might not be a good match. And that's my barometer at this point for friendships too, is like, I'm so passionate about I mean, even teaching women how to like slow burn with friendships, with dating, right? It's like, okay, when you've done this work to really like belong to self and you know your values, you don't need to rush into anything.
No.
You're like really you're honoring the slow burn, you're tracking, is this congruent? Is this like going
Yeah.
to be nourishing for the work that I've done as well? And can we like co evolve with each other? Is this
Yeah,
complementary?
you're not throwing yourself away to get a need met. You're like holding yourself closer to make sure that this thing doesn't fuck with what you've got.
Totally, because you're moving from wholeness.
Yeah, it's such a different perspective.
Yeah, versus you need to fill this void within me, or you need to, you need to deliver in this way, or exactly. That's one thing I notice a lot of women do is I'm going to throw myself into this dynamic and I'm going to completely lose myself. And then
Yeah.
on the other side of it, they're literally like a shell of a person.
And it's hard to be the guy in that perspective because it's like, I didn't ask you to do that. I didn't want you to do that. Like, I don't want to be responsible for that.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
hard. And so it's like, because it's easy, like, it creates too much dependence and too much responsibility, throws people off balance. But yeah, to be able to walk from wholeness and meet someone else who's walking from wholeness, and then like you sharpen together, like that is a very different fucking experience.
Sharpen together, move from wholeness. Yes. So from your now embodiment and perspective, what are green flags for you in the dating realm with women?
The number one thing with women is accountability for me. That is like, it's crazy because I've dated women that are so feminine and so soft and so beautiful and so connected, but you cannot lead someone who doesn't have accountability. It can't be done because they can't acknowledge where they're co-creating problems. And like, I'm happy to admit where I'm wrong, but if another person can't admit where they're wrong, they can't fix the mistakes. And so accountability for me is the biggest thing. It's like, are you willing? Because like being submissive is fine and great and everything, but you can't actually submit if you're not willing to look at where you need work done. And that's what a huge part of that is like, it's my job to lead both of us into our hearts and into our most authentic version of ourselves, come what may. But if you're with someone that doesn't want to follow the lead into that place and acknowledge where they're holding back, then it becomes really fucking difficult. And so the number one green flag for me is like the ability to be accountable, and willing to learn. Because I've met a lot of beautiful, soft feminine women that didn't have that, and that makes the relationship completely unworkable.
Right.
So I would rather have the accountability with someone who's a little less soft than have like the ultimate feminine goddess who I just cannot fucking lead anywhere. So so that's a huge one for me. That's a really, really big one. But the second one is also fun. Like, I want to have fun. I don't want to take it too seriously, because it's like I want to go from, because I view the whole leadership and development process in polarity as something that should be fun. It should be like, we don't really know ourselves all that much. This is the way to get to know ourselves. So let's go into it humble, knowing we're idiots that are just trying to figure out how cool being a person could be.
And
So
how
let's
cool
go
being a
into it
person in
humble.
relationship can be.
Exactly. Like, how connected can you be? How pleasurable can life be? How good can sex be? Like, how good can intimacy? It's like, we're just trying to figure that out. And so, like, we might as well go into it with a sense of fun, with a sense of humility and wonder and adventure, rather than this, like, if you don't fucking do it this way, then you're like, you're not the whatever, and I can't be the whatever if you're not the whatever. And, like, people take it so fucking seriously, when I think it should be fun. And so I look for accountability, I look for fun. And one of the big things is, like, being truly, actually, accountability, the true most important thing, now that I'm realizing it, is feminine communication and vulnerability. That is actually the most important thing. Yeah.
So like, yeah, I want to hear your perspective on that. What how do you register and receive feminine communication and ability?
It's just, I'm still trying to, this is something I'm still trying to work out and articulate, which is why I don't teach it yet, because I can't fully articulate it. But I know that, like, when a woman is kind of like passive aggressively trying to get me to do something, it irritates the shit out of me. But when she just tells me how I'm making her feel, I immediately would I would change the world to fix that problem. Like, I would do whatever I had to do to fix that problem. And it's such a subtle thing that seems to be so difficult and so scary. I'm really understanding what it's like for women to surrender to this. It seems to be so fucking scary. And I'm still barely understanding exactly why, exactly what the fears are. But I'm doing my best. Because it just seems to be so vulnerable. But the ability to just plainly share what you feel without trying to get anything out of it, without trying to make a point, but just sharing it because you know I care, and like letting the fact that I care, that I genuinely give a shit, be the deciding factor in how you communicate. Like, it just does something that goes from me feeling like I have to like push her away and be like, yeah, I'll deal with that later when I feel less like you're just demanding things of me. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe I'll forget about it entirely because I just don't like the way this feels. Versus like just being able to hear and feel the way she feels in a way that penetrates my heart. And it's like, I will put down whatever the fuck I'm doing and solve that problem right then and there. And it's literally just the difference of being able to feel her heart.
Yes. That's it. That's
and
it.
It's crazy what it does. It turns me into a different person.
So
like mid-fight, it'll flip me like a switch.
Yeah, well, that's the power of the feminine, right?
Yeah.
So if we apply shadow integration to femininity and to the ways in which we're showing up in our womanhood and the ways in which that can actually inspire a man to be at his optimal, right? Because instinctually, men have the desire to serve, to solve problems, right? You guys have a functionality, anatomically, spiritually, whatever, that we don't necessarily carry in the same way. It's like not really like our resting place as much. And I love how John Wineland teaches that like masculine energetic energy is consciousness, right? And then feminine is love. But if we aren't embodied in love and if we can't feel our heart, your consciousness has no place to rest and nothing to actually serve, right? Because when you can feel our heart, exactly like you said, it's a whole different tonality to the relationship and it goes beyond just the relationship. So I feel like this is also where shadow integration is something to practice in the relational artistry.
For sure.
Because it's like, oh, what's the barometer? Oh, you can't feel my heart? Then like everything's going to kind of be off kilter, right? Teddy and I actually just went through a real-time initiation of this recently, and I whole physical initiation of coming back into my heart. And as I came back into my heart after being like violently ill and having all of these like beautiful initiations that brought me into the fresh real-time experience of like cracking the fuck open, right? I can teach on love and think that I'm being loving. And that, right, this is where the shadow integration comes in. But if I can't fully feel the totality of my heart in connection to my partner, then the world probably cannot feel the totality of my heart. And that's where it becomes a mirror. And so I broke open to it, spent a whole day crying about love.
That sounds right.
Being worked by love, by the nuances of life, text, like coming back into like feeling the fabric of reality. And he came home and all I had to do was look at him in the eyes and he was just completely disarmed and with no words could feel my heart. And the first thing I said to him was, I'm sorry you haven't been able to feel my heart.
And that'll fuck a dude up. That'll change a guy's life. That'll literally change a guy's life.
And then the way that it changes his, I mean, because it did. It shifted the whole axis of our relationship.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it like almost overnight, but not, because for the feminine, for a woman, it does take this deep work of being able to feel all the layers and to descend into the body. And if she's getting hijacked by her mind, hijacked by stories, hijacked by projection, her projection field, then that inner protector part and then that inner masculine shield will come up. and it'll create a barrier between her and her partner, which creates like a wall. And then she's speaking through the wall to get her needs met
Mm-hmm.
versus actually being in her body and in her heart to express it, right? Like one example from my own relationship. I love when the doors are locked at night. And when I go to check on the door, if it's locked, I'm like, oh, he's got us. If it's not, I'm like, oh, I've got us. Like, making
Nice.
sure that we're safe and protected, right? And it's these subtle little pieces where it's like, I used to get really annoyed where I'm like, damn, he still doesn't get it. Like like I need the door to be locked at night. It's the feeling of like, I go over to the door and I'm like, is it going to be locked? Is it not? And now it's to the point where, and I know it's like, and then same with the car door. I like to just speak super raw and open. I don't need the car door opened all the time. When he does open the door, the level of which my nervous system can soften and the femininity that oozes out of me, because it's these little ways that in the analog world, because the feminine can be so ethereal and kind of like, not fully grounded here, that he's going, I've got you. I'm steps ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's these little ways where she's like, oh, you're steps ahead of me. I don't have to make sure every little thing is good so that I'm safe. You're showing me with your actions that things are right. And anyone listening to this, it's like, that's just my personal kink, right? It doesn't have to apply.
But that's also like, that comes from, at least in part, of him being someone that makes you want to face that shit for. Like, there has to be a reason. You're not going to do that for somebody who, when you're connected to your heart, is going to abuse it.
Right.
Like, you're only going to do that for someone who's like, okay, now that I'm more connected to my heart, things will be better.
Right.
And so you have to have a reason to want to do that. And it sounds like you have plenty of them.
Oh, yeah. We're constantly unlocking new levels and depths and codes. and then it becomes like, it's like you said earlier, the game analogy. If we can look at life, relationship, all of it, I mean, there is a seriousness to it all because we're incarnate, and there's like finality to everything. But if we can look at it as a game with infinite levels, and we start to unlock these new levels in our business, with money, with our relationship, with our own constitution, self-love, then I mean, with where we live, with what we do, with our community, it's like there's so many, the car we drive, it's like there's so many levels that when we start to, at least for me, when I start to unlock these new levels, I'm like, oh shit. When I start to unlock the new levels and I don't sabotage, I've actually done the legwork to have the capacity to hold that next octave and meet the next octave as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And plus, it's like the more serious something is, the less seriously should be taken to a certain degree. Like, I kind of subscribe to, like, I think it was like Iron Man. I heard him say this in either a video game or a movie, I don't remember. But someone was like, is everything a joke to you? And his response was, only the things worth taking seriously. And that's kind of how I think. Where I'm like, the more serious it is, the more we require levity around it in order to think clearly. Because if you don't have levity, you're not going to think clearly. You have to have a certain level of detachment in order to not have your emotions get in the way. And levity and humor, I find, is a great way to keep that detachment while also honoring the spirit and sacredness of what it is you're looking at.
Wow, that's really beautiful and profound perspective.
Yeah, because it's like we need disconnection, but you can either and because levity allows you to disconnect in a way that allows you to still appreciate. It's like I'm laughing at the nature of the thing,
right,
but I can laugh at the nature of the thing because I understand it so well. That's what allows me to laugh at it, is my understanding of it and my connection and relationship to it. We're so connected that I don't have to take it seriously anymore, even though I know how serious it is.
And the laughter also, I mean, it obviously lightens the load, but I feel like laughter is alchemical.
For sure it is.
If you can laugh.
And it's one of the ways in which we release stress.
Yeah. Because if you can laugh at something, that means you've done a degree, you've done a substantial amount of integration.
And I just read a study that it was like friends who talk shit to each other are 300% more loyal. Like there has to be, the more seriously you take something, the less you can enjoy it. And it doesn't make sense to take the things that are made for us to enjoy that seriously. It just doesn't make sense. Because again, what is a Nietzsche quote? It's like man suffers because he takes seriously what is meant for play. We just don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's all silly because we're all going to fucking die.
Yeah. That's always a deep one breathing.
So fuck it. Like, that's the beauty of it. Is like, I make all the rules. And with the time that I have alive, I make every single one of the rules that I have to live by. So they might as well be good ones. They might as well be fun. I create the frame, I create the context, I create the content, I create all of it. So I might as well enjoy it. Because, yeah, what are my other options?
Yeah.
They're not very good.
I love that we just did this full circle loop of like ending it with laughter and levity and playfulness and enjoyment and genuine enjoyment. Like even the process of shadow integration. So when I notice the shadow part coming up, there I still have this knee-jerk reaction to resist it, right?
Uh-huh.
And to resist is to not surrender to it or to meet it, right? So and then
But that'll always happen.
right. And what we resist persists. It's almost like when you know you have to throw up and you're like, fuck, but I don't want to. But you're like, I know I need to, and I know that on the other side I'll feel so much better. And so that'll initially happen, right? It's like, oh God, this part again. I don't want to look at this. I don't want to go there. And then it gets to a point where I'm like, ooh, I'm actually kind of getting off on this. And there's like almost like this kink to it where it's like, oh, actually, like I get to go love this part and I get to go be intimate with this part. And there's some gold on the other side of this intimacy and integration that I haven't extracted before because this is a new level and layer and iteration. Okay.
Yeah, and the resistance is the foreplay. Like you're supposed to have resistance to each new thing. If you didn't have resistance to looking at it, it wouldn't be repressed in the first place.
Right.
Like for every part of you that is repressed that is worth integrating is another part that keeps it repressed. Like there is no becoming aware of repressed material without dealing with the fact that it's been repressed.
And
there is just no way to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the foreplay. It's the getting to know you. It's the like, how does it feel if I touch you here? How does it feel if I'm this close? How does it feel if we move this way? Okay, I'm getting to know you a little bit. Now we've gotten comfortable. Now we're back at one of our apartments. We're ready to go all the fucking way. And you have to do that kind of feeling out. And the actual seduction metaphor is a really good one because it works the same way. It's like, let me see how good it feels if I get this close to you. Oh, that's too close. Let me back up a little bit. What if I move over here? What if I say this? What if I do this? And you're just constantly looking for verbal or nonverbal or energetic feedback just to see how this thing is responding to your energy. And it's like, how quickly can I move in? Oh, you still need me over here? Great, that's totally fine. I'm only going to move in at the pace that you allow me to. And if you push me away, I'll go back. And then I'll keep pushing in at the way that feels good. And next thing you know, you're communicated, you're fucking meshing, you're melding, you're having a great time. And the metaphor carries over so well.
Totally.
Like, yeah.
I mean, there's that whole like existential kink world and phenomenon around it too. And I've definitely pulled pieces of that, but the resistance as foreplay, I just wrote that down. That is juicy.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's the first time I've ever said it. So,
well, because, Marianne Williamson talks about how resistance, like non-resistance is the opposite, or non-resistance is surrender, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't even surrender sexually if you're still resisting. Mm-hmm. So it's like that foreplay, it's not even just physical foreplay, it's energetic, it's emotional, it's all the holistic perspective of foreplay and sex as sacred energy exchange, and then applying that to this psychic work. And I personally, when you apply like kink and sex, there's a levity to it just in and of itself. So yeah, and which allows you to enjoy rejection, which is so cool. Because rejection is feedback. Rejection isn't like, oh, I'm a bad person who doesn't deserve to feel good. Rejection just means, oh, this particular thing didn't work. So, like, what does? If not this, then what? I like to say rejection is God's protection and redirection. And if you look at God as that conscience, like you said earlier, that is like ultimate truth. then you're just being redirected to ultimate truth and what's going to
Yeah,
actually,
which is fine.
right. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
All part of the
amazing.
game.
Yeah, so get rejected as fast as you can. Like I'm the type of motherfucker where my whole personality is front loaded. Like I want to get rejected as fast as possible. So it's like you either fuck with me or you don't, and I want to know that soon so I don't waste my time. But
Right.
if you do fuck with me, here's all of me, and if you like that, then we're gonna have a great time.
I love it. Oh, Chris, it's always such a pleasure to dive in with you.
Likewise, I feel like we could have done this forever. This is so great.
We totally can. There's definitely going to be more to come. Is there anything else that you feel, given the nature of everything we've been exploring, that is on your heart to drop in here or to share?
Yeah, I guess since we're talking about parts and relationships and all that sort of stuff, I guess the one thing that I really want to say is it's implied in conversations like these, but it doesn't get explicitly spoken about enough. Is that these parts that we're talking about are living beings, they're living people that are aware of how they're being treated, and they're aware of how they fit into the internal world, and they are literally living beings. And so when you try to go make contact with them, you really have to understand that they have really good reasons to not like you and really good reasons to not trust you. Because up until the point of trying to integrate them, every single time they've tried to get your help, you've punched them in the face and put them into a deep dark corner and told them that they don't deserve to exist. And now all of a sudden, because you want their help, you're going to go and be nice to them and expect them to open up to you. And that is a fucked up mentality to go into. If you're going to do shadow integration, and actually start these dialogues, you have to go in with an apologetic heart. Like you're mending an abusive relationship where you were the abuser and you didn't know you were. You were naive, you were making mistakes, you were a child, you were doing what you were taught to do. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to go in there and know that these parts are only unhealthy because of how you've treated them. And that the only way you're going to gain their trust is by apologizing for that and taking responsibility and showing them that things are different by virtue of your embodiment, by actually being a kind presence for them, no matter how much they kick and scream and try to show you that they don't deserve it and that you need to back down and go back to your comfort zone. You still keep your heart open. You still keep apologizing. You still keep saying, I'm so fucking sorry that you're in so much pain that this is how you think you have to act. And like, that's the mentality to go into this with. There's a lot of beautiful things that can come from these parts becoming healthier, but those parts only become healthier if you treat them the way they need to be treated. You really have to take yourself out of the equation. And that is something that I think is implied, but doesn't get explicitly talked about enough. And so I just wanted to explicitly drop that because it's like, you're just not going to get anywhere with that mentality, and it's essential.
Oh, that was really beautifully articulated. And it's like, yeah, you're not abandoning these parts anymore. And you're making sure that they know that. And even in the face of external abandonment, you aren't going to perpetuate it by abandoning yourself even further.
Yeah. And they might not trust you. And you need to be like, okay, you have reason to not trust me. I'll be here to show you that things are different. And you trust me at the pace that you need to. Like, you decide the pace we go, not me.
Yeah. So beautiful. Oh, Chris, well, where can the listeners find you? Do you have anything upcoming? What are you offering for those who want to dive deeper into shadow integration and want somebody there holding the frame and guiding them?
Yeah, so I have a lot of things I'm doing right now. I'm doing 2 free offerings right now. I'm doing a free polarity series in my Discord group. I'm doing a free book club where we're reading the Kybalion right now. We just did the first chapter, so come on in if you want to. But yeah, I've got a free resources for everything. I've got a free shadow integration intro course. I just created a shadow integration fundamentals course that I'm also giving away for free. I'm finalizing that with my partner right now. And then I've also got my one-on-one stuff. So just go to operationmoksha.com. You can find all of this. You can find me on Instagram, operation_moksha. Dig into the free shit. And if you want more after that, then hire me. And it's all good. I've got a men's group. I've got something for everybody. And I try to give away as much for free as I can so that regardless of your economic situation, you can learn this practice.
Good man.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then moksha, right? Do you want to share what
Yes.
that means?
Yeah, so moksha is a Sanskrit word that has two meanings, but I use one of them, and it specifically means liberation from the false personality. So Operation Moksha is actually a play on one of my favorite bands, Operation Ivy, because they wrote a song that encapsulates the ethos of my business. So it's called Unity. If you want to listen to a song, a really good punk rock song called Unity by Operation Ivy, check it out. But my business is called Moksha as a play and homage to that band while also being a mission to liberate the world from the false personality. I came up with it. I was really high one day and I was fucking stoked.
And was this your favorite song when you were younger? Was this already
Yeah,
imprinted?
it's yeah, so Operation Ivy was one of my biggest bands growing up, and specifically the song Unity refers to a time in punk rock history where racial tensions were really high because ska music is some of the first music that black and white people ever made together. And so some of the punks, some of the skinhead punks really didn't like that. So they would show up and they would beat people up and sometimes stab people. And so this was like a thing to deal with in the punk rock scene. And the song Unity was the only song that I've ever heard that doesn't draw a line and say that these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. It says, we all like the same music, so let's all get along, even the bad guys. And like, let's find a way to for all of us to enjoy this thing that we like and not have to create separation with anybody. And that to me is a unifying ethos that I can really stand behind, and that a lot of activism has lost, is that we're trying to bring everyone together, not just the good guys, but we're trying to bring everyone together.
So beautiful. I mean, I could get really esoteric with my perspective. Also, the beauty that is being highlighted of like I feel like your dharma, your blueprint is always there. It's like
Mm.
always been seated on your path. And when you look back in retrospect, you can be like, oh, whoa, this was kind of, and I always say life is flirting with us, right? And it's like flirting with us into our edges of greatness and our highest potential. And like for you, your dharma, your mission, is the operation of liberation from false personality. And you've made that, like, you've stamped that, you've like staked your claim of like, this is what I'm
Yeah.
here, Chris Orozco, I'm here doing this. And I have all these resources, and here's my platform. Please go follow Chris on Instagram if this is resonating for you. His content, again, it just hits those really deep pockets. Before we jump off, there was actually one more piece you shared recently. It was like, love without truth
Okay.
is a very well-intentioned lie, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And so it really highlights that piece again.
Yeah. In that, yeah, that's one of the other, like, I didn't set out to be the like brutal truth guy. I don't like those people. Those people that like go out of their way to be brutal with the truth. That's weird to me. I don't like that. But the truth just is brutal. Like, it is a neutral force that doesn't give a shit about what you think about it. And that has to be led first. Like something as simple as the truth of like you might be in love with someone, but they love someone else. Like, that's the truth.
Right?
And it's gut wrenching and it's heartbreaking, but it's true. Like, I loved my dad, but he died. That's just what happened. That's the truth. The truth is brutal. The truth doesn't give a fuck. And that has to be integrated first in order for us to love. Because if you're loving without incorporating that brutality, you're not loving life on its own terms. You're loving an idealized fiction of what you think reality should be based on your fear-based morals. You're not loving reality as it is. Right. And the task is to love a reality as it is on its rules and its terms.
So powerful, because that's the same with interpersonal dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
It's not loving them as they are on their terms, on life's terms. It's your projection field and your romanticization of what it should be or who they should be. And exactly. I mean, the truth doesn't give a fuck. That might be the name of our podcast.
Yeah.
But I just want to share this piece because I have had so many beautiful waves of rigorous honesty and really facing the brutality of truth and feeling that liberation from the false personality and moving in an octave of love that was not accessible previously to it because there was this bypassing and sugarcoating. Mm-hmm. And recently I've been getting initiated by the force of truth. And Teddy, being my masculine counterpart, has been. I say that the masculine's like a rod to God. He's like a sword of truth. If we're, especially as the feminine, willing to lay our ego down, lay down our own sword to actually receive it. And of course, use your discernment and intuition with where it lands. However, the other night when I was sharing, like, these are all the people I'm not speaking my truth to right now, and I don't want to hurt them. And I'm actually hurting myself in doing that, you know? He brought in this samurai sword of his, and he sat right across from me and he made me hold it. And it means that as we're like conversing and as we're role playing and as we're like moving into these truth pockets, my arms would get flimsy and I would like weaken my hold of it and I would just drop it. So then he would just redirect, right? Put it back, just hold it and feel the girth of your truth, you know? And then we would do some role playing of like, how can you communicate this truth? And how can you get familiarized with these pieces of you that are terrified of doing it? Because again, I mean, I don't feel like it gets any easier. You just maybe get more masterful at identifying the parts of you that are recoiling from truth.
Yeah, because no matter what, it's what you're afraid to look at. Like,
Right.
it's just like, no matter how high you go, it's just whatever that version of you is afraid to look at. So it's always going to be hard.
Totally. Ah, it's so good. Okay.
Well, this is amazing.